It's an interesting and big debate whether Dune the film marks a real landmark in science fiction and the way science fiction is going to work in film as well as television from here on out. As much as good science fiction is getting out there, there is also a lot of bad stuff. One of the worst pieces of recent science fiction, and get to something not much better. It is still bad, but much better than the first. So let's start off with the infamous Tomorrow War. Now, the Tomorrow War, probably still very unknown to a lot of people. It stars Chris Pratt. It was done by Amazon. It's done with a relatively constrained budget. As the title entails, it's basically a time travel tale where Chris Pratt has to fight a war in the future. He starts off as a kind of ordinary guy, just has a loving family, really trying to keep to himself. He does have an insanely muscular build for whatever reason. He just does. He's just very well built. And he's drafted into this weird future war against aliens, and the human population is losing. So they use time travel to bring, quote, people into the future to be recruits for this war. But of course, things get more and more complicated. A couple of time paradoxes ensue, and you learn some life lessons about family and how working class blue collar people are the real people who will save America in the world. Blah, 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 blah. This thing is pretty terrible on almost every imaginable level. The plot is stupid. Most of the acting is pretty bad. Plot holes everywhere. I mean, every 5 minutes they just introduce a new plot hole. They retcon their own rules. A lot of the story is even pointless. It's useless. Really, the only two saving graces are a cameo by J.K. Simmons. His acting was pretty good. He's very convincing. He's a kind of loving father to the Chris Pratt character. And the creature design is okay, but it is extremely derivative. In fact, the whole story is extremely derivative of Aliens, Edge of Tomorrow, Starship Troopers. It's really just mashing older science fiction and changing a few superficial details, making Chris Pratt the central character, and that's about it. It's really worthless and very long for what it's trying to be. Some people did enjoy this as a dumb action flick, but I just felt it very frustrating. I didn't get angry with it. It is, I will say, laugh out crazy. So you will maybe enjoy just laughing at it. I did laugh at it a couple of times. It is enjoyable at a certain level, but yeah, it's really bad writing, really bad acting. And these are supposed to be good actors, but really the script is so absurd. The directing is also unremarkable. There's not much style. It doesn't look very good. The cinematography is very just plain. So there's nothing too remarkable at this, but apparently it made enough money, so they're gonna do a sequel, which is also kind of dumb. If you have time travel, wouldn't you be able to like negate the effects of these aliens? How or why would you need a sequel? But there's a kind of twist they introduce which explains why there's a sequel. It's pretty pointless. And then we get into Finch, which is so much better. And I want to praise this film on many levels, but it also has a huge amount of problems. So essentially, this is Tom Hanks in some kind of post apocalyptic America. We don't really know why it's post apocalyptic, but some kind of apocalypse has happened and destroyed most of civilization. He's eking out a living. It's just him and his dog. But he decides to create an AI robot. It'll become clear near the end why he did that, but it seems like he just wants companionship for a while, but there's a deeper reason for it. And all of a sudden, he needs to go on a road trip because where he's staying, it's going to become too dangerous, so he needs to go on a road trip. And this is very lovely, sentimental, and it's kind of nice. Again, it's nothing remarkable. Like the Tomorrow War, this is very derivative. I saw a lot of Short Circuit in this. It takes a huge amount from Short Circuit and doesn't really add all that much. And Tom Hanks is incapable of giving a bad performance. But this is kind of the lower tier Tom Hanks. I'd give this in the lower 25 of his top 50 performances. Again, he's done so much. He's never a bad actor, but he just kind of goes through the motions. If you've seen Castaway, he's kind of replaying a lot of stuff there because essentially he is the only human. He's alone for a lot of the film. Of course, the robot does a lot of fish out of water humor. It just comes up a lot, like him trying to discover how to be a human being, why certain things are done. And the jokes were fine, but it's very lazy and uninspired. The musical choices drove me up the wall because At the beginning, and he does this several times. There's like this threatening, impending doom music, but he's Tom Hanks. You're not going to kill off Tom Hanks. What was the point of putting him in danger? We know he's not going to die. And the musical choices were mostly lazy, uninspired. Heard it all before. The cinematography, though, that was pretty strong. The directing has much more of a style than Tomorrow War, so that's really interesting. There's a Game of Thrones genetic connection because the director also worked on Game of Thrones. So the directing as well as writing is much, much stronger. But really, I wouldn't be as harsh, but after seeing so many 1980s movies growing up, this really is very, very lazy. It really is just short circuit with a road trip. We don't even know really why the Earth is like this, why America is like this. I guess they're trying to be mysterious or ambiguous. That was a little frustrating. There are a few huge plot holes, but that's not the most really damning thing about this. It just feels like I've seen this all before. It's been done a million times. Doesn't really add all very much. This was even supposed to be a big, big film, originally called Bios, but they changed it for whatever reason. So it is not a really good story. It's wrong to call it a really terrible story, just like Tomorrow War is legitimately like a 2 out of 10. I can't say Finch is anywhere as close as bad, but it is kind of frustratingly unoriginal, uninspired, just going through the motions. But if you have free time on your hands, there's a worse way to spend it, I guess. That's all you did? Yep, that's all they did with Finch. It could have been so much better. Maybe I'm being unduly harsh, but after a lot of great 80s science fiction, they could have done a lot more with this.